Rotarian May will introduce the guest. PAG Timothy will take us through the Q&A. PHF Jameson for the vote of thanks, and Rotarian Amanya for the final toast. Without any further ado, I request Rotarian Yerusa to take us through the grace.
Thank you very much. Rotarian Yerusa, please take it away with a grace.
President, she seems not to be on. Can I please take it on?
Please go ahead.
Good morning, fellow Rotarians. May we humble ourselves to a word of prayer. Oh Lord, and give of all good, we thank thee for our daily food. May you bless what we have received and yet to receive, and let us ever be mindful about the needs of others.
Amen. Thank you very much. Engineer Jimmy Ogwal, please, the loyal toast.
Yes, Mr. President, for the wonderful country we have, the wonderful weather we have, and the steady progress we are making, may we all toast to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda.
His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda. Thank you very, very, very much. I will invite you, my friend Rotarian Farah Charania, to take us through the four-way test.
Good morning, everybody. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rotarian Farah. Should you wish to get a translation, Jaja Mzungu is ready and alert to translate for us. Friends, I will allow strictly 1 minute. If you have Rotary information, you have less than 20 seconds each to voice your Rotary information. So put your hand up, but better still, unmute and go straight into it. And then we can use the minute or two to get done with this as well. Any Rotary information, comrades?
Yes, President.
Please go right ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Rotarians on call, our guests and friends of Rotary. Kampala Daybreak, in partnership with the Mengo Blood Bank, will hold a blood donation campaign on 13th of November. This is a call to all of us to come and participate and donate blood to save a life. Thank you, and hope to see all of us at Constitutional Square come 13th of November, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I call her Changemaker CEO of Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak. PE, I see your microphone is open. Do you have Rotary information? Okay. So friends, in the interest of time, allow me request that we channel all our Rotary information in the chat section. We will certainly check it out, and we will be able to take part in whatever information we'll be sharing. But I just want to get us reminded of our polio day on the 24th. Please mark your calendars, and we cannot afford to mess up with this day, as it has been said by some of our friends here. It is important that we take part on this great, great day. Rotary is known for its great intervention in wiping polio out of the face of the earth. Very, very, very thick line for us to get there. Friends, the Baganda say that entasima ebula ajiwa, literally meaning that it is important to take a moment and appreciate, and not just appreciate and recognize people that have done extremely well to serve humanity. And at the daybreak, we do not do any different. We take a moment and celebrate, and also appreciate and recognize people that have been outstanding in serving above self. It is now my pleasure to, there are so many people that have done a lot of things in these 3 months that we have just put our back to at daybreak. But there's one person that has been super outstanding and has been voted actually the best person to be appreciated. It is now my honor to invite you, our AG, KK, to kindly, in 2 minutes, do us the honors of appreciating our special person for Q1. Over to you, Keke.
Thanks a lot, CMP Frederick. Good morning, friends. I'm always happy to be here. I'm also honored for having been invited to come and recognize this special chair, and that is the chair of membership, Rotarian Jane Opito. Our RI president, President Shekhar Mehta, one of the things, when you look at one of the things he told us to focus on, that is membership. He told us for each one to bring one, grow more and do more. And there are people who are actually living that mantra, and that is Rotarian Jane Opito. One of the things that she has done, when you look at her Q1 figures, she had set herself a target of bringing 5 new Rotarians into the club. I can confirm that she brought 10. I can also confirm that for Q2, there is already another 5 in the lineup. So when we are talking about growing Rotary, that's what we are talking about. So President, please allow me at this point in time to put the plaque on. Yes, this is the plaque which we are using to recognize Rotarian Jane Opito in recognition and appreciation of your service above self to causes of humanity, and it is signed by President Frederick Kitakule. And I take the honors to virtually give this plaque to you. I know at the appropriate time you will get the physical one, but please take note that you have been recognized for the good work that you're doing. I thank you, and over to you, President.
Thank you so much. Oh yes, it is appropriate, and I'm sure we can even do much better than that. It is okay to unmute and celebrate and appreciate our very own. We can do better than that.
Yes, let's go, Jen. Come on.
Congratulations, Rotarian Jen.
Yes.
Mukama asimwe.
Asimwe mnonga, poya mateke.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much, friends.
Mr. President,
Yes, DGE.
just allow me just a second to congratulate my good friend. I inducted her in Rotary. I keep following her, and she's my claim to fame. Congratulations.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, friends. And indeed, Jen, we thank you, and we continue to appreciate and celebrate you. Friends, as you all very well know, we are into the month of economic community empowerment. But you know what? When we talk about empowerment, I know that they are gurus of empowerment, and they don't just empower communities, they empower nations actually. For that matter, this morning, we are super blessed and excited to have one of the champions of empowerment, and not just in Uganda, as you will hear, globally, but I know that we'll hear a lot more on what empowerment has happened in Uganda by these particular gurus. Allow me invite none other than Major Donor May Valji to present to us our guest speaker for this morning. Mama May, you're welcome to unleash our guest speaker.
Good morning, CMP Frederick. Good morning, fellow Rotarians. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Ambassador Amin Mauji, OBE, who is the diplomatic representative of the Aga Khan Development Network in Uganda for the last 4 years. On the screen, you will read His Excellency's bio. However, I would like to share with you what is not in the bio. His Excellency is an East African citizen. He was born in Kenya only because his grandparents lived there, and his mom went to her parents to give birth to him, as is the custom. However, His Excellency was conceived in Uganda and lived in Uganda, Kampala, in his formative years and later moved to Dar es Salaam. He has a Buganda name called Mugabu, which means the giver, and you will see that it is a worthy title by his contribution to humanity. His Excellency completed his studies in England, where he graduated in economics from the London School of Economics in a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England. Over a career spanning 35 years, he advised on a number of large businesses, deals, mergers, and acquisitions. His Excellency was a senior partner at Ernst & Young, and I think, and in this forum, he will feel at home if he joined our Rotary Club, because Kampala Daybreak ranks the highest, having accountants as members of Rotary. However, while he was in Ernst & Young, he headed the African trade routes team in London and the global head of firms aerospace and defense industries. I think we can solicit his help in Uganda. Upon retirement from his practice in 2013, he was appointed by the UK government on various projects. He also worked with and is a director of the Aga Khan University and other things. He was the president of His Highness the Aga Khan's National Council for the United Kingdom. The thing that takes me the most about him is that he wrote, he's the author of a book called Programmed for Control. It is based on the risk management on long-term projects. I think that's an asset that he brings to Uganda as well. He recently also published a publication called Poverty to Prosperity, bringing best practice on the role of civil society can play in international development. In England, he achieved a lot of accreditations, one of them being the top 100 BAM business leaders, the Great Asian recognition. But out of all this, Her Majesty the Queen appointed him as an officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, which is the OBA, for his public service. His Excellency is married to Gulnar, who is also a chartered accountant by profession, and they have 2 children. Their daughter, Sophia, who is a lawyer by profession and has 2 children, thus making them grandparents, and their son, Samir, who is an MBA in finance and also from the London School of Economics as a chartered accountant. The apple does not fall far from the tree. Welcome, Your Excellency, to Kampala Daybreak Fellowship.
Thank you very, very, very much, Mama May, and Your Excellency Amin Mauji. It is now my honor and pleasure and privilege to officially welcome you to the family of Rotary as you share with us the role of the Aga Khan Development Network in Uganda's economic development. You're welcome, and together with your team from the Aga Khan Network. Over to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, CMP Frederick. And let me say at once that it's a fantastic pleasure and a privilege for me to be part of your gathering today. Thank you also to Rotarian May for that wonderfully warm introduction. As you will have heard, I grew up here in Kampala. I went to school in the region. And I have to say that although the schools that I certainly grew up in, went to, had very limited resources, quite often not even enough classrooms, I felt I got a good education here in the region. But when I look back, I do feel that that was one bit of advice that I'd received, which I still regard as a bit questionable. I was taught as a child growing up here in East Africa that every problem that I was ever likely to face in the future was a problem that somebody somewhere else before had faced. And that really, if I wanted to equip myself for the future, I should read as much as possible. I should learn from my elders, speak to people senior to me, and learn as much as I could from them, because they would most likely have dealt with the same issues previously. Looking back on it now, some many years later, I do feel that that advice was a little questionable, because the fact is that we are living in a world where we're constantly facing new issues. But even if the issues have not changed, they need new solutions. And this is what I really like about the Rotary organization. You are, after all, a collection, a group, a community, if you like, of people whose central purpose is to solve problems. And so I really just want to start by congratulating you for the fantastic work that you do. I'm very familiar with the Rotarians' contribution to the societies in which I have grown up. And so I start really by saluting you, thanking you for your excellent service. Now, I've been asked to talk about the role of the Aga Khan Development Network in Uganda's development. You know, development partners often ask me, what is it that the AKDN does and how does it do it? But I'm very conscious that today I'm speaking to Rotarians, and the question that I guess will be foremost in your minds is not the what we do and the how we do it, but why we do it. And so I want to take a minute just to start with that. The Aga Khan Development Network, if I can just have the next slide, please. Thank you. The Aga Khan Development Network is something that I would describe as being an endeavor, a creation, if you will, a creature of the Ismaili Imamate. Now, many of you will be familiar, I know on this group, many of you will know that the Aga Khan, His Highness the Aga Khan, is the leader of a faith community, the Ismaili Muslims. His role is a hereditary role. It's a lineage that goes back 1400 years to the time of the Prophet. Now, we call this hereditary institution the institution of Imamate, in which each Imam is succeeded by another. And when I'm asked to describe what this institution is, I find it best to use his own words, which I'm just going to put up on the screen now. Give you a moment to just read that. So you will see from that description that this is a leadership that is essentially a spiritual leadership. And the question that I guess will be going through your minds is, why is it that a faith leader should concern himself with matters of economic development or development more generally? And here are some words that, again, in his own words, answer that particular question. Now, I know that these words, the reason I put these words up, by the way, is because I know they will resonate particularly with the Rotarians. Not because it's driven by a faith agenda, but because you will understand the ethos. And it is through this ethos of trying to improve the quality of life of people that the Ismaili Imamate, running from one Imam to the next, have created this set of institutions that we today call the Aga Khan Development Network. Now, the Aga Khan Development Network is really a collection of many agencies. There are over 200 agencies, and I'm not going to go through all of them today. But in the interest of time and simplicity, it's best to think of this set of network, this set of institutions, as really falling into three buckets. There is the economic development bucket, which is what I'm going to spend most of my time today talking about, because it's part of your theme. But an equally important bucket for us is social development. And then we have a third bucket, which we call cultural development, which is equally important for us. And I will just introduce that very briefly, time permitting. Let me, sorry, you don't go, fine, we'll stay on this slide. So if you go to the next slide, I'm going to start with economic development. And I think what I'll do is we'll take a couple of minutes on each of the kind of subheadings of economic development within the context of the Aga Khan Development Network's work. The context here, I think, is worth just reminding people, was that in East Africa, in the time of in the sort of colonial period, the leaders, the local leaders, who subsequently became the future leaders of East Africa in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, had begun to start discussing with the Aga Khan, His Highness, about how they would prepare for independence and what would be needed in this region in a post-colonial setting. And of course, the ideas that were being discussed at the time were tourism, promoting industry. I'll come on to media and financial services in a minute. But if we start with tourism, in the period leading up to independence and immediately after, the Aga Khan, in an effort to try and promote this, created a brand called the Serena. The Serena brand started really with hotels, but then led on to safari offerings, safari lodges, golf courses, high quality hotels. The point that I want to emphasize, I'm not going to go through all the hotels because there are many hundreds across the region, but the point that I think is worth emphasizing is that these were programs, development programs, that were started not for a business to make money. That was not the purpose. That has never been the purpose. The purpose was to try and kickstart an industry, to provide best practice, to set the standards for the industry, to make sure that we could offer, we as a region, could offer world-class facilities, so that people would come to Africa, to East Africa, and would say, this is a product or an offering that is really world-class. And the idea of the Serena was to try and motivate others to come into the sector. And so today, many of our people who get trained in the Serena go on to work with other hotels, whether it's the Sheraton or the Marriott. And frankly, we are very, very happy about that, because that is part of the mission, is to create the human capital, to create jobs, but also to create jobs in all of the surrounding economies that go with tourism. We had a recent study done recently that looked at the economic impact of the Serena in East Africa over a 5-year period. And over that 5-year period, the Serena has added, in terms of economic value to the region, about $1.8 billion worth of economic value. And that's how we measure our impact. It's not by measuring just the bottom line of a hotel or a bottom line of a safari lodge. Moving on to the next period of economic development, which is industrial promotion. Again, the countries that we were working with, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, were very keen to see what the Aga Khan could do to help promote industry. And so to give you some examples here, I won't go through them. There are hundreds of companies involved. But the very first submarine cable that connects East Africa to the international cable system, submarine cable system, was an Aga Khan project. It's called SEACOM. It's a 17,000 kilometer underwater line that initially, when it first started, 2009, increased the internet penetration in Uganda from, I think, less than 10%, around 8 or 9%, to over 50% immediately. In the case of Uganda, in the case of Kenya, that went up to 90% very quickly. And that line that comes in connects also Rwanda, it connects also to South Africa now. But submarine cable and telecoms network was essentially supported by the Aga Khan. We had later on in subsequent years, when His Excellency President Museveni was keen to have energy generation expanded here in Uganda, the Aga Khan agreed to sponsor a project which none of the other investors were willing to come in to do. And so Bujagali was an Aga Khan project. We brought in other sponsors and other partners. but essentially Bujagali reduced the cost of energy by 66%. Some of you may remember the period of load shedding that we had in those days and the high cost of energy. We've had since then a number of other industrial operations, if you will, but we think of them as programs because they are development programs to build and make pharmaceutical products here, to make fish nets here, agro products, agro processing, leather. The point that I want to emphasize about these things is, again, none of these started as a profit-making idea. In fact, if it was purely on profit, there would have been other bidders to bid for these things. But quite often when we were bidding for these projects, we were the only bidder in town and the only bidder that was willing to take the risk to do a project that has very long-term, potentially long-term returns. And so we were patient investors. And the investments, I think, have proved to be good investments, but they also demonstrate the wisdom and the vision of His Excellency President Museveni, because he has played a big part as a partner in bringing these ideas, in promoting them, and so on. Let me move on to the next bit. Before I talk about the media, it's worth saying that when we look back on the tourism and the industrial bits, collectively, these entities today account for, amongst the top taxpayers of Uganda. And so our development contribution, if you will, is not simply in terms of the jobs that are created within these separate businesses. The contribution that we measure is how many other jobs have we helped create, how much other industry have we supported, and ultimately also how much tax do we directly pay into the government's treasury. And we've been very pleased and very proud to be amongst the top few taxpayers in Uganda. Moving on to the kind of post-colonial development thinking, one of the things that His Highness the Aga Khan was very concerned about was, how do we help to prepare these countries for democracy? And he felt that, I'm going back to the 50s now, he felt that really we needed good organs of democracy like a free press, a free media. And so the Nation Media Group was started in 1957, again, not as an idea to make money, but as an idea to build the organs of democracy. And today you're familiar with all of these names: the Daily Monitor, the NTV, KFM, Dembe radio station, East African newspaper, and so on. We continue with these programs. It doesn't need, I suppose, it doesn't need the Aga Khan to be carrying on with these things anymore, because I'm sure there are other media players who could come in and do this. And at some point in the future, we may well decide whether it's appropriate for the Aga Khan to carry on with having achieved a kickstart of the industry, having established the industry, whether it would be better for others to take that forward. But as we stand today, the Aga Khan Development Network is proud to be a strong player in the media operations of East Africa, holding leaders to account, informing people, making it possible to share culture and bringing education. So that's the media operation. And then finally, under the economic development heading, we have financial services. Again, I think people on this call were probably too young to remember, but there was a time in the 1930s when the wananchi could not get insurance services. I mean, the Mzungus were finally served. But if you were a wananchi growing up here, there was no way you could get insurance cover or risk cover. There were not enough banks, or in fact, no banks, I think, in those days for the common person. And so the Jubilee Insurance was started in 1936. It was a project, if you like, of the Golden Jubilee of the Aga Khan. I'm talking about the previous Aga Khan, not the current one. He was celebrating his 50th anniversary of his period of leadership, what we call the Golden Jubilee. And that's why the insurance program that started in 1936, it started, in fact, in Mombasa and Jinja, But today, Jubilee is the largest insurance provider across the whole region, and is now just partnered with Allianz, the biggest insurance company in the world, to provide insurance services in East Africa. In the 1940s, the Aga Khan decided that we needed a bank for the average citizen, the 1 the small and medium-sized enterprises. And this was a Diamond Jubilee project, and the bank was called Diamond Trust Bank. We have other banks, Habib Bank, which operated in Kenya for a while, but actually is an international bank with a much bigger presence elsewhere, KICB and so on. So that's financial services. All of those are kind of the main planks, if you will, of our economic empowerment program. We had aviation here for a while. Air Uganda, some of you will remember, was an Aga Khan initiative. We don't need that now. We have Uganda Airlines, thankfully, and very proud to have a national airline. But we've been involved in economic empowerment for a very long time. People think of these businesses as investors in business, but in fact, each of these is a development program with the aim of setting the standard for the industry, kickstarting the industry, training people, and encouraging others to come into that sector. I'm going to move on very quickly now to talk about social development, only just to introduce it briefly. You're all familiar with what we mean by social development. We've been in schools here. We have 8,000 students studying in our schools across the region at the moment. We have health services, the best hospitals in the region. In fact, the only hospitals in the region that are accredited internationally. JCI standards are Aga Khan hospitals. At the moment, we have hospitals in Nairobi, in Dar es Salaam, both of which are JCI accredited. We're just about to build another hospital in Dodoma. We have one in Mwanza, Mombasa, Kisumu, Kisii. And of course, many of you will be aware we're about to start building a hospital in Kampala, in Nakawa. We'll start with the university bit first, and then the hospital will follow. We have academies here. We have the Aga Khan Foundation. I'm not going to touch on that today because I think you have a presentation in future sessions to explain the Aga Khan Foundation. But that's social development. And in social development, we also include, we have two universities. One is called the Aga Khan University, and one is the University of Central Asia. The Aga Khan University operates in East Africa as well as in other parts of the world, in 8 different countries. Here in Uganda, we have the School of Nursing and Midwifery, which is part of the Aga Khan University. We are training, we have graduate programs in media and communications. We're training people in health sciences, and we're also about to start a medical college. The University of Central Asia covers only Central Asia, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Afghanistan. But I think some of the new programs that are being developed there will have application in East Africa. And I'm hoping that within a generation, we'll start to see the benefit of that knowledge being transferred here. And then I said I would finally touch on cultural development. The reason why we have a pillar called culture development is because the Aga Khan has this idea in his mind that culture, particularly for our societies, our traditional societies, culture is an asset that needs to be protected, that needs to be stewarded. And that's why when some of our other things are called the Economic Fund for Development and Fund for Education and so on, this one is called the Trust for Culture. And there's a reason why it's called the Trust for Culture. It's because it recognizes the responsibility that we have, whether you as Rotarians or we as community members generally, that our culture is entrusted to us. We should protect it and make sure it develops. So we have within this Trust for Culture many programs. One's called the Aga Khan Award for Architecture. It's one of the biggest programs in the world to protect architecture for certain societies around the world. We have something called the Music Initiative. Again, there are many musical traditions that are dying. That's not to say that some of this music we get from the West is not good music, but we have music in our region, in Africa, in Asia, which is rich music, is traditional music. In fact, it's the root of much of the music that the West is playing today. Well, let us not lose that tradition. let us protect it. And so we have an initiative called the Aga Khan Music Initiative. It's an international initiative trying to protect traditional instruments, traditional music, and so on. We have a historic cities program that's trying to protect cities that have sadly been left to ruin in recent generations. And we have a big program to rejuvenate and revitalize those cities. And of course, we have a museums program that is international. We also have a green spaces program. If we can press the next slide, please. So we have some parks. If you were to go to Zanzibar, for example, Forodhani Park is an Aga Khan built park. If you went to Cairo, the hub of Cairo today is the Al Azhar Park developed by the Aga Khan. If you went to Mali, the Bamako Park is an Aga Khan park. And so we have been focused very much on developing green spaces, and hopefully Nakawa will have one of these green spaces soon too. I'm going to stop there because I think I've covered a lot, and I want to allow time for any questions or any thoughts, any insights that people will have to share.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for these great insights into the contribution of the Aga Khan network into the economic development of our beloved Pearl of Africa, Uganda. Friends, when we talk of economic empowerment, which we are so passionate about in Rotary, to a point that it is one of the 7 critical areas of focus that we focus on as Rotary. And a quick takeaway, we must always start from a point of empowering people. Sometimes we start from a point of only making money. Nothing wrong with that, but it is good to have a perspective of empowering people. And I believe this has spurred some, it could have fired up some more thinking into our minds. And we want to have a discussion. I would like to, when we talk about spurring up neurons and all that, we need a doctor into the picture, into the perspective. Allow me welcome you, PhD Dr. Timothy Basima, to moderate our Q&A session. And I like that, Your Excellency, you've allowed time enough for us to discuss. So Timothy, if you could use 15 minutes, strictly 15 minutes, for us to have a discussion and engagement with the Your Excellency, that would be great. Dr. Timothy, over
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, President Frederick Stakure. This informative fellowship this morning is bringing us to a level of discussing high-profile information. Your Excellency, I see the chat room is full of praises. Members on the call are proud to be recipients of the Aga Khan services. They are very proud to be working with the Aga Khan Development Foundation, and others are proud to be parents of the children who go to Aga Khan schools. Your Excellency, in the chat room, there is one particular first question, and it goes, what timelines do we have for the execution of the hospital in Nakawa, considering that Uganda is one of the areas that needs health services in the utmost faith? And the question is expanded to ask that will the hospital be to the standard of the Nairobi hospital, the Aga Khan hospital in Nairobi, so that Ugandans are not always flying out of the country to receive the services the other side? Colleagues, if we have another question, you can put up your hand, then we right go and maybe have some more questions, then they can be answered at once. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I think let me answer that question by taking the second half of your question first. Will the hospital be of the same standard as the one in Nairobi? I mean, normally we would expect the hospital to be actually at a better standard because it'll be newer, it'll have the latest technology, and our aim is that it will actually be in some ways a degree or two ahead of where we are at Nairobi, because everything will be using the latest cutting edge science. In terms of timing, timing has become an issue because of COVID. I have to say that COVID has really affected us in ways that people will find very difficult to understand, but it has affected the movement of people. It's affected because the team that works on this hospital has been largely an international team. We have planners from New York, we've had planners from Australia. The landscaping has been done by people from the Middle East. Even a simple thing like clearing the ground at Nakawa, because there are lots of trees in Nakawa, and because as a rule, we don't cut trees down. We wanted to transplant the trees so that they were in other parts of the plots. We could not find anybody in East Africa who had ever transplanted trees of that size. So we had to bring people in from abroad to lift these big mature trees and make sure that they were not cut or they were not killed, but they were replanted in areas outside of where the construction was going to be. That took time. So to answer your question in very briefly, COVID has taken us back, a couple of years now. But the intention is that as soon as we see some clarity in the health risk, we are hoping to start the piling work very soon, hopefully before the end of this year. And we will start certainly building the university portion of the hospital, because this is not just going to be an ordinary community hospital. This is going to be a teaching hospital. Uganda needs a good teaching hospital also to serve these hospitals. So we will start with building the academic facilities, the teaching facilities, the student housing, and the hospital in a phased sequence. But I hope that we will start to see the work coming up, hopefully by the end of this year.
Thank you very much for Ebre giving it a very, very good explanation. CPA Frederick Sibedi, your hand is up. You can go right on and give your question on board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CPA Timothy Basima, and thank you so much, Your Excellency. It excites me to have a say on your presentation, which is exquisite in all ways. I must confess that I started my employment history in 1995 with one of the Aga Khan network entities, that is Uganda Fishnet Manufacturers. And what I learned there was that the Aga Khan is deliberate about empowering people. And, even when you get to interact with people who come from India, Pakistan, and wherever they are coming from, you get the feel that they are trying to empower you to take over. And they are not afraid to make sure that the people who are within that network grow within the ranks. I'm one of those kinds of persons who grew within those ranks, and I'm very, very passionate about the foundation and about the network. There was one gentleman called Shiraz Chatur who was leading one of the units. I think that was Fishnet and Kampala Pharmaceutical Industries and Uganda Leather Industries. What amazed me about it, and which is what I wanted to add to your presentation, is the truthfulness of wanting to serve humanity. Because even when I had left the Aga Khan network and I fell sick, there was money that was collected from that network to make sure that I'm given the treatment that I needed, and it's the reason why I continue to live. And so for that reason, I want to thank you very much, and I want to find a way in which probably people can continue to be able to be part of this network, to be able to spearhead its missions and its intentions. And I'm glad that even today, I work with a number of them, a number of the units as an auditor, although they are paying me, but I would be more than glad to even discount their fees to be able to. I've already actually discounted their fees to be able to continue to sustain their mission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, CPA Frederick. I mean, you are the reason why this organization succeeds. You are the example that demonstrates, the route to success. I mean, you've mentioned fishnets. It's worth saying again, just to elaborate the example. The majority of people who work in Uganda fishnets are women. So for us, this was a program to empower women specifically. It's focused on women. is to make sure that they get economic empowerment. But the other thing, well, the other reason why we were keen on fishnets is because there was a time when a lot of the fishnets that were coming into the country were illegal size fishnets. We were catching fish from the lake that was too young, too small. And the purpose of having Uganda fishnets as a program for us was to show to the government that, look, it is possible to make this economy work and still be compliant with protecting the environment, protecting our fish stocks, and not allowing illegal fish nets to ruin the industry for us and to ruin our environment in Uganda. Thank you for your example.
Thank you very much. There are 2-3 more questions. Rotarian Mujedwa is asking about does the Aga Khan team have any partnerships with the Rotary? And the other question is, does it have any programs that specifically targets the youth, especially in the developing countries? Rotarian Farida asks some other question. What examples can Rotary borrow from the impactful projects that the Aga Khan is implementing in our different economies? If you can first probably hit those ones, then we can have another stage. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Well, let me start with the third question, the third part of that question, which is what lessons can be learned. I think the big lesson that we've learned, which is a lesson that in fact Rotary needs no education on, because the Rotary is already doing this, is that when you're talking about empowering people, the idea is not to try and bring some fancy idea from other parts of the world, or to have the arrogance of thinking that you know what is best for people. The one thing that we have always understood right from the beginning is that the people, the beneficiaries who we are trying to empower, know what is good for them. The only thing that they lack is the lack of opportunity. They lack the opportunity. They are not people who have got a difficult circumstance because they lack thinking power. That's not the case. What they lack is they were the misfortune. They had the misfortune of being born in circumstances that never gave them the opportunity that others have got. And so our focus, very similar to Rotary, is to make people the masters of their own destiny. People do not need to be told by some foreign organization that this is how you should live, and this is what you should learn, and this is how you look after yourself. They know all that. They need not a handout, they need a hand up, and they need to be made masters of their own destiny in a way that preserves their dignity. We don't think of ourselves as charity in the same way as Rotary doesn't think of itself as a charity. Rotary thinks of itself as partners with people, and that's how we have to approach it. So I think that lesson, in a sense, you already have. The second bit of your question was about the youth. We have many programs for the youth. But one of the things we learned many years ago through the wisdom of His Highness the Aga Khan was that if you start to help people, whether it's in their education or in their healthcare, when they are 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, it's actually too late. The time to start helping people is from the age of 0, and in fact, prenatal. So we have programs that focus on people before they are born in terms of their healthcare, ultimately their education. The human brain develops, as we know, the fastest in the period 0 to 5. There's no point trying to improve somebody's exam results, PE results, PLE results, when they're 14, 15 years old. The time to have started is when they're 1 year old, 2 years old. So we have a big focus on early childhood development, early childhood education. Our programs for youth are really about empowerment. We have a university, as you know, which has looked at youth issues. We have something called the East African Institute that has looked at youth development in East Africa. We did a survey recently on attitudes of the youth. I have to say I was very depressed by the outcome, by the result of that study, because what we learned about the way the youth are thinking was quite depressing for me. I think we have some policy issues to think about as a region. but I think there is a lot that we do for youth generally. I think your other question was, what partnerships do we have with Rotary? We don't really have any specific long-term partnerships. I think at an individual level, I know that various parts of our organization at an individual level have partnered with Rotary. But because we have such common values, and because the people in Rotary are by and large people who understand our way of working, it's been a very easy partnership for us to have wherever we work together. So we're very grateful that we have people like Rotarians in East Africa, particularly in East Africa, where it's a very active organization. Remember, Rotary started at the same time as essentially we started in East Africa. Our first school in East Africa was in 1905. The first Rotary organization, which opened in Chicago, was in 1905. We have a shared history in that sense, and so we've always been very respectful of Rotary.
Thank you very much. I like that part of the shared history, and I think we are also going to be shared Rotarians. Probably questions is here, and one question was, what is to develop in the region? I think that's the only question I see in the chat. The rest are praises all over the beneficiaries. And there's one particular comment about how Aga Khan is so practical on the approach of the environment, especially on transferring the trees. And I think the question on that is, would you lend a leaf to the many Ugandans and in other to make developments? Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think our focus on the environment has really exponentially increased in recent years because we become more conscious. I was recently approached by one of these oil companies saying, could we take some of their funding to help them do schools or medical facilities in the areas where they're doing some oil work? And unfortunately, I had to turn down their money because we are very, very sensitive to our contribution to the environment. In terms of planting trees, at the last count, we had planted over 120 million trees. Now, I know tree planting has become almost a passé activity, but for us, it goes beyond planting the 120 million trees. We are now measuring and promoting environmentally friendly activity in everything we do. When I drive to the office each morning, my fuel consumption, my mileage is tracked as part of our environmental reporting. And every time I think of getting on a flight, I have to report what I think that flight is going to cost in terms of our ecology before we can make the decision whether it's worth imposing that cost on our environment. So for us, environmental protection is very important. We have an initiative, a program called Habitat, the Aga Khan Agency for Habitat, which is looking specifically at these questions of habitat in these regions. We have a partnership with a number of universities in the US, looking at what we can learn from those universities, Harvard University, MIT, and so on, Stanford, what we can learn from those universities about protecting seismic risk. We have seismic risk in many parts. We have flood risk in many parts of the world, and not enough is being done. I have to tell you, not enough is being done in the developing world to protect against this risk. When we were building the hospital here, we submitted our plans to the planners here, and they said, why are you building in such protection for earthquakes? We have no earthquakes in Uganda. And we said, look, our product is built to a standard. We don't know whether in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, or 50 years' time, whether the earthquake risk will increase in Uganda. We are building to that standard. So it is an important element for us. I'm glad that you've raised it. I'm very pleased that people now everywhere in all walks of life are beginning to be conscious. But I think we, particularly in Africa and Asia, also have to look to the West to say, what contribution are they going to make to help us make that transition? Because those countries became developed countries on the back of, poor environmental protection at that time, it should not be just for us now to pay the cost. We need the world to contribute to our protection so that our development is not held back. And I'm hoping the Rotarians will join us in making the case so that countries in the West, whether it's the US or Europe, recognize that they too have a shared responsibility in making us environmentally safe, but not holding back our development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the last set of questions. President Frederick, the floor is now yours. Over to you, President. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. T, for handling the interaction session in the time that has been allocated to you. And indeed, glad to know that the start of the AKDN and Rotary dates far back in the same time and in the same date. And the good that the AKDN is doing and the good that Rotary continues to do is quite enormous. And I believe that, who knows, maybe if we join forces in some of the areas of interest, we could even do bigger and greater impactful empowerment interventions. But you know what? We want to say thank you very much to you, Your Excellency, and allow me invite my senior leader, Jameson Karimani, to move a vote of thanks to His Excellency and the entire Aga Khan Foundation for their contribution to our country. IPP, over to you.
Thank you very much, CMP President Chibedi, and good morning to you all. Thank you very much for the opportunity. On behalf of Kampala Daybreak, on behalf of the Rotarians and the audience of today, and on my own behalf, I would like to appreciate you, Your Excellency Ambassador Min Mugabo, for the good programs that you are doing for our country, for our people, for the support that you are rendering to the needless, for sharing information with us this morning. Thank you very much for stimulating speech that you have made. It was an excellent and clear and clinical-oriented presentation. We have been able to understand the value of Aga Khan in our country and in our lives as Ugandans. And we have to continue appreciating you and yearning for more. We pray that you continue with that support, and especially where you are doing what work would be done by Rotary, you complement us and we complement you. For that, we want to present you a certificate of appreciation, and the same reads, Amin Mij Obe, in appreciation and recognition for sharing the knowledge and experience during this presentation on the Aga Khan Network's contribution in the development of our country. Would like you to receive that certificate, and always remember Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak and Rotary at large. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you. I receive it with pride. It'll have pride of place on my wall. Thank you very much.
100%. Your Excellency, this certificate is not only virtual, I will personally deliver it to you in your office at an appropriate time. And I'm sure that you'll put it in the most precious place whenever you look at it. Always remember that we've been so grateful, not just to this presentation that you have made, but we are so grateful to the Aga Khan Development Network's contribution to the economic development of our country and our motherland, Uganda. Thank you very much. Friends,
thank you.
I see our time is really fast spent. Allow me welcome you, Rotarian Wax, to take us away with the statistics of the day.
Thank you, President. Without wasting any time, I will dive into the statistics. President, we had 157 participants on call. We had 47 Rotary clubs, 2 Rotary clubs, and 4 guests. President, I would like to start with our guests, and the names are as follows: Madam Marion Onyoy, Mrs. Ogwal, Ajilo Mela from Aga Khan Foundation, Patrick Kimathi from Jubilee Life. Those were the registered guests, but we had other guests as well. President, I would like to go straight to the Rotary Club's present, and I will go through the list quickly, starting with Bweyogere Nambole, Namasuba, Ntinda, Bukoto, Nalumunye, Kampala Alibad, Kampala Kibuli, Makindye, Sonde, Maisha, Kampala South, Sunrise, Kampala Impala, IPO Arua, Rubaga, Mukono Central, Kiwatule, Kansanga, Kampala Springs, Kololo, Kampala North, Mukono, Arua Eco City, E-Club Ntinda Metropolitan, Muyenga, Morning Tide Bugolovi, Chengera, Kampala Sese Island, Woblenzi, Rubaga Lake View, Kampala Munyonyo, E-Club of Uganda Global, Bweyogere Central, RC Yan City. This is RC Yan City, Luboa, Rubaga, Nsambia, Entebbe, Nigeria, Eko Naguru, Morning Time Bugolobi, Chadondo, Bulova, Bweyogere Central, Muyenga Sunset, Kitante, Mbarara, and Kampala. I think there was also Mbarara Ranchers as well. The Rotary clubs present, if we haven't mentioned the club, please include your name on the chat group. I see Kampala East as well. Under the Rotary clubs, we had Mulago School of Nursing and Midwifery and Ruvaga. So the club of the day, president, was Sunrise on account of numbers in attendance. I submit.
Thank you very much, Sergeant. I would like to add the Rotary Club, the Rotary E-Club of Ntinda. Thank you for being with us. And then clubs that we could have left out for one reason or the other, we convey our sincere apologies, but please, I want to add a voice to what our sergeant has said. Do register in the chat room, and we will certainly not just register, but we will recognize your participation. Friends, it has been a great time and a great pleasure and privilege to host you this morning. What a joy it is, and what a journey that the Aga Khan Development Network has moved in developing Uganda. We want to say thank you once again. But allow me appreciate each and every single one of you, including those that have already signed out. If you meet them, please convey appreciation. We are so glad and grateful that you could make time to come and attend our fellowship. But allow me in a special way, appreciate our leaders in Rotary. We want to appreciate you, our past district governors. Well, my elder, the first man, Tusu, thank you very much for making time to be with us. Past District Governor Xavier Center, my brother and my mentor, thank you so much for making time to be with us. And all the other Rotary leaders, I cannot forget the past assistant governors. Thank you very much for making time to come and be with us. Changemaker assistant governors led by our own assistant governor, AGKK. Thank you very much for gracing our fellowship this morning. And to you, my comrades and my fellow Changemaker presidents, I can only say thank you very much. And I pray that God will give me and the members of Kampala Daybreak the grace to return all the numerous visits that you give to Daybreak every week in, week out. Having over 20 of you in each and every single fellowship of Kampala Daybreak is quite humbling. Thank you so much. And we come to our international partners, members from District 9214, led by our own VCC Jaja Mzungu and the entire leadership of that particular district. Thank you so very much for always visiting us in great and huge numbers. Friends, I want to request that you allow me welcome you, my brother Rotarian Wilberforce Amanya, to give us the final toast as we come to the end of our fellowship.
Thank you, President, and good morning to you, fellow Rotarians and friends, for this wonderful presentation of the AKDN contributions to the development of our region. We are only able to share in this morning because we are Rotarians. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, friends, to propose a toast to Rotary International.
Rotary the world over. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May God richly bless you and make you
Rotary the world
a
over.
blessing.
Now Rotary is over.
Rotary the world over.
Rotary the world over.
Okay, bye-bye.
The world over.